Bad games, like bad movies and TV shows, are a given in this day and age, and like other pop culture, there might be some games that could be so bad they're funny. Not these games. They represent the absolute dirt worst that gaming had to offer over the past decade. Let's take a look, starting at number 15. Number 15, Past Cure, 2018. There's sordid plot, shoddy action, and oddly ill-fitting puzzles in a supernatural third-person shooter. And then there's Past Cure. The development team was small and fairly inexperienced, thus resulting in uneven AI and performance. However, that doesn't excuse the story, which was just a meandering mess when it wasn't outright dull. Number 14, Umbrella Corps, 2016. If you wondered about the hostility towards Resident Evil Resistance, this is why. In 2016, Capcom tried to mesh the third-person perspective of the latter games with competitive esports modes. We're still not sure. Either way, it was neither fun as a multiplayer shooter thanks to terrible map design, bugs, and bad matchmaking, nor was it a decent waste of time for solo players. It was simply a failure. Number 13, Sonic Boom: Rise of Lyric, 2014. It's bad enough that Sega sought to completely redesign Sonic and Friends, giving sports bandages and a scarf to Sonic and turning Knuckles into a roided out monster. But Sonic Boom: Rise of Lyric was far from a decent experience, sporting graphical glitches, bugs galore, annoying and repetitive gameplay, a terrible story, etc. Yet another sad attempt to reinvent the speedster, and to the surprise of no one, yet another failure. Number 12, Escape Dead Island, 2014. What was Escape Dead Island? What was the actual purpose of it? It certainly wasn't to kill zombies or have fun. Instead, it took the survival horror route with botched stealth and action. Telling a great story, maybe? It didn't do that either, offering an unlikable protagonist hallucinating the entire plot, which also happens to be stuck in a time loop because reasons. Number 11, Troll and I, 2017. Troll and I could have had an interesting premise. A boy and a giant troll teaming up together to battle for survival? Sure, why not? Of course, everything falls apart very quickly. Too many glitches, too many bugs, and worst of all, nothing worth putting yourself through the bland story, torturous gameplay, and awful visuals. Number 10, Postal 3, 2011. Poor writing and offensive content are pretty much a given with a Postal game. Not that this excuses the sheer stupidity of the material, but Postal 3 also fails as a video game, with painful loading times, glitches, poor AI, poor combat, and a poor technical structure holding it all together. Simply disastrous, even for fans of the series. Number 9, Rambo the Video Game, 2014. When you think of Rambo in video game form, several things come to mind. Open world shooter, out-and-out action FPS, tons of destruction. So of course, Rambo the Video Game was an arcade rail shooter that somehow also had stealth and melee combat. Unfortunately, even if it did have Rambo things, the awful graphics, representing bullshot marketing at its finest, abysmal audio quality, bad AI, and crashes made this a bad experience overall. The only saving grace is that the story is mercifully short. Number 8, Alone in the Dark: Illumination, 2015. Alone in the Dark has always been a creepy, atmospheric survival horror franchise. So of course, a 2015 version of the game needed to have lots of shooting, magic, and 4-player co-op action. And why not throw in some randomly generated enemies and layouts a la Left 4 Dead? Spoiler, because it would have been awful. And sure enough, Alone in the Dark: Illumination didn't disappoint in that respect. You would think that a publisher couldn't have ruined the franchise any more after the awful 2008 reboot, but you would have been wrong. Number 7, FLATOUT 3, 2011. It's a shame to see a franchise like FLATOUT come to this. Developed by a different studio, FLATOUT 3 suffered from bad controls and collision issues on top of the unsatisfying gameplay. However, there was just a layer of awfulness encompassing everything, dragging it all into a dreadful muck that offered no silver lining. Number 6, The Walking Dead: Survival Instinct, 2013. Forget Daryl. Even Lori doesn't deserve the virtual hell that is The Walking Dead survival instinct. Developed by Terminal Reality of Kinect Star Wars fame, this first-person shooter is most notable for that one easy achievement. Otherwise, it's an awful mesh of boring environments, terrible graphics, utterly broken design, and lack of anything remotely interesting about its universe. Number 5. Infestation: The Survivor Stories, 2012. While Bohemia Interactive's DayZ was hogging most of the limelight, Hammerpoint Interactive sought to release The Warzy to capitalize on the same concept. The results were hilariously botched. Along with the missing features in the Foundation release and adding premium microtransactions for such things as respawning instantly, the developer tried to copyright the name, only to get rejected for its similarity to World War Z. The title was renamed to Infestation: The Survivor Stories, but is still an incomplete, terrible mess. Number 4, Left Alive, 2019. A stealth survival title in the Front Mission universe with art by the famous Yoji Shinkawa sounded cool in theory. The actual game, however, left much to be desired, whether it was in the stealth, awful AI, unbalanced difficulty, or the constantly looping music. It's a shame because the overall universe, use of Wanzers, and art design could have and should have resulted in so much more. Number 3, The Quiet Man, 2018. Before Left Alive, Square Enix published another worst game of the decade contender with The Quiet Man. This mix of live-action cutscenes and video game brawling, awkwardly transitioning during certain moments, offered an inane story told through no sound. Perhaps the most insulting of all is the post-date launch update that added sound back into the game, removing its one discerning gimmick and further burying its terrible story. Number 2, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5, 2015. From the minute it was announced, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 was little more than a cash grab. It contained none of the magic, be it in the gameplay or level design, of past games. The repetitive missions, lack of NPCs, awful graphics, forced online features, numerous loading screens, and bugs cemented this as a cruel joke of the franchise's greats. A new IP might not have hit this deep, but this was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and for worse than better, this was Activision cashing in on whatever goodwill was left. Number 1, Ride to Hell: Retribution, 2013. One of the most infamously bad games ever made. Everything about Ride to Hell: Retribution is utterly terrible. The graphics, the gameplay, the controls, the production values, everything. Bugs were a given. Overall, a sensationally terrible experience that's like a scar, not forgotten and painful to recall.
And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.